are back. Don't know if I'll be on that long today, but there's a couple things I do want to come on for and discuss. And the first one is going to be, I'll look at the chat later, so if you have a question, you could put it in the chat, but I don't look at it till the end. So it tends to distract me a little bit. And I wanted to kind of get this idea kind of going before I get distracted. I wanted to talk about spells a little bit, and it is because we're almost getting toward Halloween, at least in the United States, we're getting toward Halloween, and you see a lot of people talking about, and even in the consciousness sector, you see a lot of people talking about spells, right, and witchcraft, and stay with me for a while. This is going to feel like it's a little off topic, but I think I can bring it back around at some point in the middle or the end. And people will sometimes call leaving human realities, leaving the matrix. I've heard it called breaking the spell. And there are different iterations kind of to the same storyline, which you're basically breaking out of the illusion. And you see spells, it's kind of been cast in the wording itself is kind of cast with a lot of, I don't want to say the word mystery around it, but a lot of mythical lore about witches and witchcraft and spells, and basically losing your agency, which is really a lot of what spells are. You also will see a lot of the human consciousness kind of bastardize that a little bit, where the spells have this really negative connotation where it's kind of done to you and you are kind of a victim to it. So it's also another way to kind of talk about victim energy, but not talk about victim energy. I've even seen, if you get into some of the fourth dimensional consciousness, it's the way a lot of people start connecting, and people start connecting with different spells, or they'll start connecting with different energy that's not your pure aspect energy. These are kind of tainted energies in a sense. They're distorted energies. They're kind of bastardized energies. They have this distorted side. When you talk about witchcraft, you talk about wizards, you talk wizarding energy, alchemy energy is probably a version to say it that is a higher consciousness way of saying wizarding energy. It's more like creation and alchemy type of energy, but you get into the witchcraft, you get into spells, you get into goddess energy, which is another kind of, it's gotten very distorted. When we start to use those energies, people will say those aspects in the fourth dimensional realms, when you're kind of in that metaphysical quasi kind of tapping into different things, whether it's energy work, whether it's any of these iterations of it, these all kind of start to lump into what you would call, they're not the purest, right? They're just not the purest aspects of you, but they're kind of a gateway into other things. And these are energies that interest people. And you'll see a lot of people that kind of delve into it, because it does, especially when you get into feminine power, you'll get into people who will get really attracted and go down the wizarding path, or the witchcraft path. It's just kind of a way to, it's a different empowerment energy you can kind of get into, right? I don't know if there's a different way to say it, but that's kind of what it is. It's just different kind of roads people walk down. The end goal, though, is to get to the fifth dimension and get to the ascension, your ascension journey, and start going down your journey, which is to anchor in that higher energy in the body and to get the body vibration up. That's kind of what physical body ascension is when you see those words thrown around and when you see those topics thrown around. I mean, that's what full body ascension is. That's what it means, When you're still living in human realities and you're still kind of under the spell of human realities, they're very much victimized energy. So it's kind of like you see one version of the word, and then there's a different version of the word, and it's not so much, I guess, the version of the word, that consciousness in which the word is used. And when we talk about kind of breaking the spell of human realities, and once again, people will kind of take that word and it gets morphed, and it gets kind of tainted, and it gets shifted, and basically they almost try to switch it around, like it takes away your agency, right? It takes away your power. You are a victim to whatever someone else is trying to do to you. And that's what turns a lot of people off in general to the word. It turns a lot of, it either is going to attract a lot of people because they want to use it to manipulate, or it's going to turn people off because it sounds crazy, right? You can't be put under a spell. You can't do what someone else wants you to do. And that is true and not true in a sense. We put ourselves under the spell. You know, we believe what we see. We put ourselves under and agreed to put ourselves under the spell. And to me, the spell of the human consciousness, the human dimensions, is just kind of disconnecting ourselves. We kind of disconnect ourselves from consciousness. We disconnect ourselves from ourselves. We disconnect ourselves from our souls. We live in a very separated state. But we agreed to do that. So is it a spell that's crafted? Yes, but we're kind of crafting our own spell. You know, we are kind of seeing what we want to see. We're crafting our own realities. And you'll see a lot of, when you go into any type of reality creation, and you start to try to break that down, a lot of TV shows, a lot of movies, they'll kind of break it down, you know. And it's funny because you wouldn't think you could look at this medium and kind of see a lot of it explained, but a lot of it is kind of broken down. And you see a lot of exposure to different things, and depending on what collectives you're attached up to, and we're attached to many collectives, you're going to be drawn to certain things. You know, certain things you're going to be more involved in, certain things you're going to want to be more involved in than other things. Now, I know I was watching something on witchcraft this morning, and it was kind of funny because it was basically one person was seeing one thing and the other person was saying, "What are you talking about?" You know, I don't see this. It was the new Agatha All Along, you know, and she was in this spell, and she's going through this, you know, it's a whole thing, but she's going through all this murder mystery thing in her head, and she's seeing dead bodies, she's trying to figure out this mystery, and this other person comes in and they're like, "What are you talking about? That's a picture on the wall, that's not a holding cell, those are flowers, what are you doing?" And it just kind of shows how we create the whole thing. Now, in this case, in the portion of this show, she's kind of under somebody else's spell, right? We have to kind of twist that into it's our own thing. You know, this is showing how we depict our reality and what we see as a reality, and how someone else comes in and sees something totally different. And it's the consciousness in which we view it as to what we're seeing. You know, we create the whole thing. No, we agreed to. You know, so is it a big collective mishap, a big collective scam? I mean, in a sense it is, but we all agreed to do it, you know, so we all signed our name on the dotted line to break ourselves off, in a sense, to disconnect ourselves from realities, disconnect ourselves from our soul on realities, disconnect ourselves from our soul. So that's what we agreed to do. So we do go under a spell, and we spend a lot of time, and you'll see a lot of ascension people who speak about ascension or talk about their journeys talk a lot about sleeping and trying to wake up out of this whole illusion, out of this whole spell. And because it is so distorted when you're in it, and when you start to pull out of it, you realize, yeah, I was seeing all this wrong. You know, to the extent that the show depicts the lady seeing it, maybe not, maybe so. Depends on how you want to look at it and how distorted your realities can get. Some of us just had a lot more distorted realities than other people, and there's no way to say we all had the exact same experience, because we don't. And do we all have very similar energetic experience? Does our ascension journey all follow a certain cadence and path? I do believe it does. But some people just agreed to more human traumatic experiences than other people did in this iteration, in this reset, you know, of this timeline, in this reset of what's going on right now. So it's really important when we start looking at a lot of these, I almost like to call them kind of gateway. You're either into Reiki, either you get into the whole witchcraft thing, either you get into the chakras, you're getting into wizarding energy, you're getting into goddess energy, which is just more feminine and empowerment energy. But there is a manipulation of that. There's a seduction energy to that is tainted. You know, it does have that taint to it. It has they're not the cleanest energies, because there's a control mechanism in them. You know, there's a trying to get someone else to do something. Trying to get someone else to do something you want them to do. It's trying to move a reality in a certain direction, but not just you going in that direction, but also getting other people to come with you in that direction. by manipulation and that type of energy. And so we see a lot of people go down this road and they don't realize how close they are to what they've created. A lot of people don't want to come back and kind of link together what they created before to what they're going to create now. You know, they want to almost say that they were a victim to everything they had in the human realities, but now I'm going to create everything over here. And that's not true. You can't all of a sudden create everything over here and have no responsibility or accountability to what we created here in our human realities, because we did create the whole thing. We did sign up, you know, to create the whole thing. We did agree to create the whole thing. We didn't sit here and have no agency in it. So when we try to paint ourselves as we don't have agency to do it, we were kind of under someone else's spell. That's when that whole energy kind of starts to fall apart a little bit, because we try to take something and make it, we're trying to clean something up, right? And there are a lot of things we do clean up along the way. Our zodiac sign, we kind of clean up along the way. You know, we take a lot of this stuff out, we clean it up and bring it back in. You know, our zodiac sign will be a certain zodiac sign. We are born under a certain sign for a reason. It gives us certain traits we're going to need in our ascension journey. Certain things we're going to have to call upon. But every zodiac sign has its yin and its yang. You know, it has its higher aspects of it, the more pure, beautiful aspects of that sign, and the not so nice aspects of that sign that everyone knows. You know, you name a sign and you can say, okay, it has these attributes and these not so nice. You know, these are not so many things we like about this sign. There'll be certain zodiac signs that you're always going to be attracted to, and you find that changes as you go through your journey. You know, as you go through your human journey, as you go through your ascension journey, you're going to find that these things start to change. You know, you all of a sudden, if you always wanted to talk to and be attracted to in any way, it doesn't matter, friendship, romantic, it doesn't matter what iteration of the relationship it was, but you'll be drawn to certain zodiac signs because they mirrored something in you. And when you transcend that aspect, you're starting to attract different ones in, because there are certain things about that sign that's going to bring out certain things in your sign. And it's almost like it's almost program matching, energetic matching, but if you want to do it and look at it a different way. It's kind of a different way to look at the same thing. And that's what we do a lot, you know, because there's so many people connect through ascension, connect through their awakening in different ways. And these are just different ways people can come into it. But with our zodiac sign, we kind of will leave it for a while, and we won't really feel as attached to it. And we go through our awakening, certain parts of our ascension, and it starts coming back in again. We'll feel more of a connection to the stars. We'll feel more of a connection to our sign. But we will cleanse out the stuff that is not the more distorted parts of that sign. And we will start living the higher aspect version of that sign. But there are still traits in that sign that help you later on. That's why we all came in when we did. You know, everyone came in under a certain sign for a reason. You know, it's just how it worked. So as we continue to go through our journey, you're going to find a lot of this stuff will shift. It'll change. What used to be one way, all of a sudden it flips and changes and it's another way. What you used to see a lot, you don't see a lot. You break out of one spell, you go into a different one. And then there's kind of the spells within the spells where you will see, well, especially when you get into relationships where you feel like people almost put a spell on you. And you'll see a lot of that depicted, you know, in a lot of human consciousness. A lot of people will talk about it. The twin flames have that kind of aura to it, that magical aura to it. It's almost like you're under a spell. Or you can talk about it as a kind of a matrix within a matrix. It's kind of like layered upon layered upon layered upon. And because there are so many things to break out of when we start coming out of our ascension journey, and we're going into our ascension journey and coming out of our human consciousness journey and kind of leaving our human realities behind and moving on and going on. There's so many different things we have to dismantle, you know, and break out of. And you will have, people will call it the matrix in the matrix. You know, you'll see it, you'll see the spell within the spell. But we kind of bewitch ourselves, you know, and we are kind of bewitching ourselves. We always have the power to break ourselves out of it, but we're so layered in and so deep in that we don't understand how much we have to break through. And there was a scene in the series I watched this morning where she's trying to break out of the spell, and it's very visual, where she's like stripping off all her clothes, and it was one version of her and a different version of her and a different version of her. And that's kind of what we'll do. We'll kind of strip off one version, and then there'll be something else we kind of feel like we're in, and then we strip off another version, and there's something else. And it's programming after programming after programming to kind of start to break out of it. So a lot of people get attracted to certain iterations of these energies to break themselves out of it, to see it a different way. When I say the matrix, well, some people don't see it that way. Some people don't want to see it that way. That's not a word that's going to attract somebody. But if you say spell, all of a sudden, well, that's interesting to me. That's kind of a key word for me. Some people will call it a light activation, and like a key code. It unlocks something when you say it. That's why so many people get into that type of energy. So many people get into those kind of wizarding worlds because it unlocks magic for them. It unlocks the possibility of something else, of creating something else. So you can look at the flip side of it too. What you do get sometimes is people get lost in it. And we talk about our power sets coming online. We talk about different iterations of our superpowers, where you've got clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience. I mean, just all the clairs. There's clairgoustians. There's tons of them. Going into the dream space, manipulating. I want to say manipulating, but kind of utilizing the dream space. Is probably a better word. You just learn to do a lot of these things and can use them to connect and use them to kind of see through different iterations of what you're going to be going through, different iterations of what's happening. A lot of people would describe dreams as, it's like looking through somebody else's picture album, but the pictures are all jumbled up, so they don't make a lot of sense linearly. When we try to come back into our linear mind when we wake up and try to make it make sense, that's why we always say it doesn't make any sense. We'll be like, oh, it didn't make any sense. I don't know what was going on there. I didn't understand any of that. But there's a reason. There's a reason we say, oh, I didn't get it. Oh, I didn't understand it. I didn't understand it because it's all jumbled up, right? It doesn't make a lot of sense. It's all mush-push together, right? You could say it's a book with pages ripped out and then they're all taped back in a different way. Or different books. You might have 100 different books and it's like you rip out all the pages and then tape them back in, right? There's a lot of different ways to look at our dream space and how disjointed it seems to us, how unraveled it seems to us, and how when we come back into our linear mind, we lose it because we lose the frequency. Dreams are a certain frequency. When we lose the frequency, we lose the dream. We can't remember it. That's why people will write them down, or some people would tape record them as soon as they wake up so they can remember them. Because you lose them along the way. You forget them along the way. You can't remember exactly what happened. You can't, right when you wake up and then it starts to fade because your frequency dips back down and that's in a different frequency. If it wasn't in a different frequency, it would be already here. The fact it's not here says it's somewhere else. It's in a different frequency. Your body's in a different frequency to experience that. It's in a different dimension, a different space. You can go 100 different ways with it when you start talking about the dream space. And I was actually watching something the other day, and it was about, I think they mentioned Harriet Tubman, who was clairvoyant and could see, the path ahead of her and know, different safe routes to take escaped slaves. So it was the whole thing about Harriet Tubman. And they went down, I can't remember the other person they were talking about, but it was something about this person. Oh, I think it was Joan of Arc. And I don't remember too much about the Joan of Arc stories as far as what she could do. Vision-wise, I don't remember. I can't really hone in on what that was, but I do remember the Harriet Tubman story very much. But they kind of tried to fictionalize it and say, well, the visions are interesting, but we have to ground it, or we have to make it like plausible, because those things seem so implausible that someone could do all these things. But these are things we do all the time. But you find you peak out at a certain point with a lot of these energies, especially the wizarding energy, the sorcerer energy, like I said, the spell casting, all the Wiccan energy. A lot of that stuff you're going to tap out at a certain point. You can only go so far because there is the taint to the energy. And you can't go farther as far as getting more of your superpowers online as long as the energy's not pure. And it's kind of a fail-safe we built in this iteration where we couldn't kind of destroy ourselves or everyone else with what we could do. When you go to Lemurian timelines, Atlantean timelines, all those timelines that got destroyed, we can't do that again. Because we built in this sort of fail-safe that you can only get more and more power the purer you are, the more of your soul you've embodied, the higher your body frequency is. Because then you start to lose interest in all the human stuff. You don't play in the human tropes anymore. You're disinterested in the human experience. And that's basically when you become more and more able to hone in on a lot of these, what people are going to call them superpowers, kind of being able to see your field, see different iterations in your field, understand and see different, if we keep with the spell genre today, understanding when someone's under a spell and they're still kind of really deep under, and people will call it deep under in the human realities. You're still kind of in the matrix. We can call it 100 different things and it doesn't matter what we call it. It's either conscious or not conscious. It's there or it's not there. And it doesn't really matter what we want to call it or how we want to categorize it. Certain words bring in certain people to wake up to what's going on, wake themselves up, wake their body up. And it doesn't matter really what it is. Everyone's going to go a different path. Some of us go similar paths, and some people go a totally different path. But they all kind of end up in the same place eventually, because you're going to tap out on how much you're going to be able to do, how much you're going to be able to accomplish in a lot of these energies if you just stay in these energies, because there's a manipulation in them. There's no way to get around it. There's something you're trying to utilize it for, to get to something else, to get to somewhere else. So I know this stream has been all over the place. I can feel I'm all over the place. But I think it is important to kind of show, in a sense, how all over the place these things can feel, and how everyone's going to come in a different direction. And so we try not to judge where anybody is. We're trying to judge how anybody's coming in. We're trying not to judge how someone gets opened up, whether it's through books like The Secret, or through, if anyone's really into reality creation, if you're really into channel work. A lot of people don't like channel work because they feel like that's not, well, how can that be real? It goes through the whole, and it's just channel work to me is still more fourth dimensional work, because you're still not owning the aspect. You're not embodying in the aspect. It's still seen as separate. We're still seeing something as separate. We're still playing in the fourth dimension. We haven't embodied it yet. It's still something out there. It's guides. It's, something I channel, blah, blah, blah. You can only channel yourselves. You can only do any of this stuff. It's all our own creation. It's all what we're seeing. It's all how we're seeing it. And we can change it and shift it to whatever we want to see it and how we want to see it. We want to materialize into a different reality. We can do that. But we have to actually move out of the reality we're in. And a lot of times we don't want to kind of move out of that. We kind of want to stay stuck. We don't want to leave it behind. We don't want to move out of it. We don't want to continue going. We want to kind of stay in it. A lot of people say they want to get out, but the next reality is not here. And I used to say the same thing. There are realities there, but they're not the ones I wanted. So I would say, oh, it's not here yet. Let me rephrase that to the one I wanted. It's not here yet, but the realities are here. These are just not ones I wanted. So whether you're dabbling in any of these energies, whether you are kind of feel, especially this time of year, especially in the United States, we get a lot of Halloween content. We get a lot of witches. We get a lot of spells. We get a lot of it's funny, what comes to mind is brainwashing, and there's a whole collectives that are still continuously kind of keep playing in the whole brainwashing and the rhetoric, and believing what we see, and believing who says what, and believing the source it comes from. And we are very much simplistic into believing what we see, and that is kind of the illusion we build, because it's easier. When we're really still in the human consciousness, it's easier to just believe everything we see and being a victim to that, instead of taking the agency to say, wait a minute, You know, that's not, even if we start taking the agency to say that that's not right, that's not okay, we're still in the programming of why it's not okay. You know, we're still not seeing the bigger picture. We have not tapped into the consciousness to understand why it's unfolding. It's a conscious act to stand up and say that's not okay, but from an unconscious place still. We're still acting from a program, but we are acting. We're doing something, which is, we're not just placating to everything that's going on around us and just saying, oh, it's just how it is, and it's just the victim energy of how everything is. You know, we're standing up for ourselves a little bit more. So, no matter what path you chose to come in, no matter what even interests you now, a lot of people think, okay, well, wizarding energy and witchcraft energy, that's nothing to do with ascension. But like I said, it's just it's a different door in. It's a different way to look at something. It can be just as distorted as going the crystal route and going in through our crystals or the Reiki and all that stuff. It can be as distorted as that if we try to utilize it to control other people. And that's what a lot of us go into that to try to do. And when we say, if I say that, you know, I would have said though that I didn't try to do that. And other people, I'm not trying to control anybody. And maybe not in the sense of complete, what's the word? I just had it and I lost it again. Brainwashing, right? We're not technically trying to put someone under a spell, but we're trying to move a reality the way we want it to move. You know, we're trying to take, and you know, let's be honest, we're not the only people in these realities. We're trying to retrofit and move in a certain direction. There's other players in here. It's not just us. We're not in a reality all by ourselves, because if we were, we'd start moving in a certain direction. We're in a reality with other people. That's what makes the reality complicated, because we're trying to get everyone else to do certain things in the reality to go with us, right? If we're in it by ourselves, it's easy. We don't feel that need to fix the whole thing or get it the way we want it. A lot of these energies, a lot of these things are to get it the way we want it. And that's the taint, that's the distortion to it. And that's the draw, in a sense, to get us there. To utilize it to get stuff we want, to get people to do what we want them to do. You know, telepathy's another one. Is it an iteration of the higher consciousness reading your field and, you know, energetic sensory perception? Sure. Extra energetic sensory perception, yes. And extra sensory perception, yeah, it's an offshoot of that. But it's still trying to get someone to do what you want them to do. It's just a different way to do it, right? So all these things that will come in, just like the zodiac sign we mentioned, all these things that kind of come in, even our human jobs we have, we'll clean them up in a sense and utilize those skill sets later in our ascended realities. It all will come back, I promise you. It just won't have, it'll be pure when it comes back in. It won't have all the stickiness and distortedness to it. The reason we got into it in the first place, you know, it won't have any of that stuff. So we're able to actually create something that's pure. We're not able to create something that is just full of what we want out of it. You know, it's even light language. That's another one you'll see a lot of people get heavy into that when they start moving, you know, into ascension. But it's still helping people cleanse what's in their body. So sometimes you might be able to listen to someone who does light language, and that's just there's different iterations of light language. I've heard a couple different iterations of it. I know I will do it myself. But for me, it's always something I just want to say to myself. Sometimes I will talk to like the cats and stuff in light language, my own light language that comes through. And it's just a different dialect, different iterations. But you see a lot of people that will do it, you know. And that'll be what they'll put out, you know, as far as videos or what they'll share. And it does help a lot of people to hear the dialects and to hear the language. But it will change as they go, because it will purify. As they purify, the language purifies, because it's helping them cleanse out the stuff. Like when I say it, it's also helping me cleanse out my stuff. So it's not 100% pure because it's still got stuff in it. It's just when I talk in general. You know, the higher my consciousness goes, the cleaner the frequency of what I'm saying is. Because I'm working through my programming and my stuff as I talk. You know, the cadence changes, the frequency of the voice changes. If you go back and look at stuff I did 10 years ago, it's a totally different cadence to my voice and a totally different consciousness I'm speaking to. or speaking from, because that's where I was at the time. I don't take that stuff down because someone at that consciousness level or aspiring to be at that consciousness level might want to listen to it. But I wouldn't go back and listen to it now because it just puts me back in old timelines and it puts me back into something else. It puts me back into something that's not where I am right now. So there's no point in going back to that stuff. We have to keep going up in our body frequency. We have to keep going up into different realities. We don't want to, can we branch off into parallels? Yes. Are they, to me, the similar frequency to where we're at? Yeah. Is it going to give you a huge change in the timeline? To me, not really. They're just kind of offshoots. A lot of times those are the ones I'll see, in that hyponagogic state right before you wake up, right before you go to sleep. There's a very powerful psychic state, no matter what consciousness you're in. It's a very powerful psychic state. And to me, it was the ones that would come the quickest, because the frequency of my body, when I was settling back, either going to sleep or waking up, it wasn't that far off to where that was. So you see an iteration of that come through. Even if it's just not the exact same thing, the energetics of what was going on would come through. And you'll know because you'll think about the dream or think about that thing, whatever it is, as soon as something else comes in and you'll connect the two. Like, oh, I dreamed that. Not exactly that, but something similar to that, So we have these things that seem to come a little bit quicker, that we can offshoot into a parallel reality a lot faster, because to me they are similar frequency. They're not totally far, years and years off to where our body needs to be to get us to a different one. And I say, when you say years and years off, and when I say it, everyone, I know I can feel everyone like, and I used to do the same thing, like you want to roll your eyes, you want to be years and years off, that's ridiculous, why is it so far off? It takes that long to clear the programming. When we don't have the depth of the programming to clear, and once you get through some of that in the earlier, I'm going to say earlier years or earlier 4 or 5 years of your process, I do feel like the things start to come faster because you don't have so much to work through, and you've worked through so much already that you don't, it's almost like the learning curve's a little different. You can switch and go higher and higher in frequencies quicker. You can quantum jump into different realities faster because you're not tied by the old. You don't have the story of the old. You're not bound by the old. You're not bound by the spells, in a sense, if you want to go that direction. I don't even like the word, because when I say the word, it feels tainted. I don't love the word, but I do feel it's important to bring it through as far as talk about it today, because you see so much of it. And it is almost like the word itself has a control mechanism to it the minute you say it. You can just feel the ickiness in a sense of the word. Even though when you're in a certain dimension, it might not feel that way. But when you say it from a different consciousness, it kind of feels that way. But you'll kind of start to see yourselves kind of shedding all that stuff. And then it does get a little bit easier. You feel you're more open to the realities that come in instead of judging because they're not the ones you wanted. You understand there's a reason that one's there. And no, it might not be the one I wanted, but there it is. So, all right. I think that one's been probably about as off as, not as off. Okay. I don't think I have any questions. If I have any questions, I'll take them. I don't think I have anything. I'll give it a minute because I know there's a bit of a time delay. I do want to reiterate before I go. Don't get too hung up on some of the words that are, some things you're going to get more attracted to than others. This is how it is going to be. Some things are going to draw you in. Some things you're going to, even all science fiction content opens everyone up to the galactic space, the galactic wars, the galactic memories. All that stuff's there for a reason. Some people came in through Star Wars and Star Trek, and that's the route they'll come in. It's more of the galactic way in. And then eventually you're going to have to flip and do the soul work too. And there'll be other things that attract you in. But you see a lot of people, especially the men, come in through all the galactic routes. And they'll want to come in that way. And I'm going to add one more thing at the end that I've seen a couple of times. And I do want to mention it. And now I kind of lost the wording I was going to use. Cursed. There it is. Someone that's cursed, and this stream has been all over the place. This one you're probably going to have to kind of breathe it to get through it, because this one is kind of going to get you in a lot of different directions. People who say that, oh, I've been cursed. And it sounds crazy to say it, but you see it quite a bit. And people who actually believe that and believe that they don't have that kind of agency, that can happen. And I've seen it a little more lately. And with Halloween coming up, you're going to see it a lot more. And movies kind of get us to buy into it. And we kind of can get all over the place with it, right? We believe what we believe. We set up the reality the way we want to set it up. If we believe someone can do that, then we're going to play into that reality. If we believe someone can't, it's ridiculous, right? And if you're listening to it and it sounds ridiculous, it's the agency we give ourselves. And humans are going to call it power. We might want to call it, maybe humans want to call it agency. You'll start to disconnect so much from the human realities, none of it matters. Human realities, you don't play in it. It's almost like that character in, we really are all over the place today, in Lord of the Rings, the one that was so above everything. Was it Tom Bombadil? I don't know. I think that was his name. It's all over the place. He didn't care about any of the human stuff going on in Middle Earth. He could care less. He was not involved in it all. He was above it. He didn't want to really get involved in it. It didn't matter to him. All the stuff they coveted so much he didn't give a shit about, it didn't matter. He didn't care about the rings. He didn't care about any of it. He was just going through and doing what he was doing on a totally different consciousness and a totally different plane. It's kind of a similar thing, right? When you see some of this stuff, you have to understand some people believe they have no agency to be in that, and they're so under the human consciousness and so kind of buried by it that they feel that they don't have any agency and that these things are possible. And the minute we believe it's possible, we make it possible. It flips a little bit in our higher consciousness when we start trying to create realities, and you'll hear people say, if I believe it can happen, and that is true. It feels like the stuff we don't want to happen happens quicker, right? We're like, oh, I don't really want that to happen, and damn, it just happened. How did it happen? And if I say this other thing I really want to happen, that's not coming in, but all this other shit's coming right in as soon as I say it. It's like a lightning rod right here. The frequency is close to where the frequency of our body is. That's why that stuff seems to come in quicker. Also, it's a way for us to clear, to get to the other stuff we want quicker. It's a path. This, I don't want the situation to happen. And as soon as I say I don't want it to happen, it just happened. What did I do? Did I do that to myself? Did I create my own spell? We call it in. We're calling it in to clear. It's another way for us to get to what we do want. But we also have to understand your wants are going to change. You're not going to want the same things when you start ascension and when you're in the middle of ascension and when you're in different iterations of your journey on ascension. You're not going to want the same thing. It's all going to start to change and flip on you. It's never going to be the same. So don't get so bogged down on, I'm so powerful I can get this, but I can't. No, why can't I get these other things to come in? The frequencies are different. We have to clear this frequency from our body. We have to get out of the frequency we're in. This situation we're creating is going to help us bust through that programming. It's going to be one of the ways you bust through that programming to get to the next thing, so we can then bring in something in a higher frequency. We have to bring our body up. That's why we have to go through the realities in the beginning, because we don't know how to clear energetically yet. We haven't kind of gotten to that yet. We haven't gotten to that, how do I do this yet? I don't understand. I don't understand how I can do it energetically. That's why people go down all these different iterations and the different iterations of breaking the spells and getting out of the matrix and chakras and all the stuff we talked about. Tarot cards. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether it's Star Wars or you watch Buffy the Vampire Slayer or you watch Charmed or you're into Star Trek. All this stuff activates a consciousness to get you somewhere else. Okay? Whether it's superheroes, whether you're into the Marvel Universe, whether you're into DC because you like the darker heroes a little bit. Doesn't matter which way you go. It's all to get you somewhere. And maybe that's just the point of this whole stream. All right, so I think that hopefully that is summed up. And I had a question as to what exactly we were talking about today, and I think we talked about just about everything today. So I'm gonna let it go on this one, and I'll see everyone next time.